Welcome back to the studio here at France 24. You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Shona Bhattacharya, and here are our top stories in this edition. Promising increased military aid to fight Boko Haram. The U.S.'s Secretary of State is in Nigeria as the army there claims to have killed Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau. Turning Kinshasa into a ville morte or dead city. DR Congo's opposition called for a general strike this Tuesday, but our correspondent says only the capital heeded the call. We'll be getting more from him. And fleeing to South Africa for a better life, hundreds of Zimbabweans are crossing the Limpopo's dry riverbed every day, a risky move that leaves many vulnerable to human traffickers. Day 2 of his Africa tour. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Nigeria. He met with President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja, the capital, where the two men discussed Islamic extremism and regional security. As a reminder, Boko Haram has led an uprising in the northeast since 2009, violence that killed some 20,000 people and displaced more than 2 million from their homes throughout the region. Nigeria is hoping the U.S. will sell weapons and aircraft in their effort to root out the Islamists. For more on this story, let's cross over to Chika Odua in Abuja. Chika, what kind of military role is the U.S. willing to play?
You know, the United States has definitely expressed its willingness to help Nigeria in its fight against Boko Haram and other counterterrorism measures. We do know that presently there are actually U.S. military personnel on ground in northeastern Nigeria, which is where the fight is really taking place. So already there has been a lot of cooperation in terms of training, military training, also sharing information. These are the two particular areas that the United States has already delivered in terms of what it wants to provide as far as assistance to Nigeria. So again, that's just military training and definitely sharing of intelligence.
Now, Tuesday morning, a Nigerian military report claimed Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau was killed 3 times in the past. He's been declared dead or fatally wounded. Can we believe it this time?
Well, it's very funny that you say that. Yes, we've heard again and again that he's been killed. Only for a few days later, the group will come out and say, actually, he's still alive. What the military is saying this time around is that he has been wounded severely in some strikes that took place on Friday. They're saying that this person who was wounded is also so-called Abubakar Shekau, but that Abubakar Shekau is actually a title. It's not actually a person, because that person, according to the military, has been dead for a long time, but now it's a title of another commander who's using that name in Boko Haram's leadership.
All right, thank you so much, Chika Odua, for joining us live there from Abuja.
Thank you.
More than 2 million people have fled Boko Haram in Nigeria, but also in neighboring Niger, Cameroon, and Chad. Our team traveled to the Lake Chad region, where the Chadian government evacuated fishing communities and extended the state of emergency to deal with the terrorist threat.
As far as the eye can see, hundreds of islands dot the expanse of Lake Chad. The borders of 4 nations meet here: Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. But the threat of Boko Haram pays no heed to these nominal frontiers. Over the past 3 years, countless communities have been uprooted. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes in Chad. Hundreds have found refuge here, near the regional capital, the city of Bol.
Boko Haram entered our village on a Wednesday, in the middle of the night. When they attacked, I was sick, in my bed. A neighbor helped me to escape. We went to the lake, we found a boat, and we crossed it. Then we had to get on a camel. We arrived in Medi, a village about 20 kilometers from here. I've been here for a year, but I cannot work.
The testimonies here are frighteningly similar. The arrival of Boko Haram by night, leading to the rapid flight of the population of entire villages.
We weren't expecting Boko Haram to arrive in our village. Some people said it was going to happen, but we didn't believe them. But one night they arrived and fired at us, destroying everything. We left. Since then, we've had to work as labourers in the region. We work in the fields and we're paid a bit of money. That means we can buy something to eat.
With the threat of further attacks still present, many here no longer want to return home. That means the new reality for aid groups is finding long-term solutions for the displaced people.
At first, the work consisted of helping them find a means to survive. Now we're concentrating on finding a way for them to make a living. That means getting access to grain and seeds, to find jobs in farming, or find work in traditional activities.
The impact of the Boko Haram insurgency has been vast. The UN estimates 2.7 million people have had to flee their homes in the Lake Chad region. In all, over 9 million people require humanitarian assistance.
Authorities in Khartoum say South Sudan's former vice president and rebel leader is in Sudan. Riek Machar fled Juba, the South Sudanese capital, last month after he was fired from his post. He was last seen by UN peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of Congo with a leg injury. And Machar is now receiving treatment in Khartoum. Operation Ville Morte, or Dead City, brought Kinshasa to a halt this Tuesday. The capital of the DRC was largely empty of traffic and many shops were closed. Opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi's coalition named Rassemblement, or Gathering, called for the general strike. The opposition coalition is protesting a delay in this year's scheduled presidential election, and it's refusing to join this Tuesday's talks on the subject, demanding all political prisoners be released from jail. Despite calls for the strike to be followed around the country, in Bukavu, in the east of DRC, the city was busy as usual, as our correspondent Thomas Nicolin reports.
Everything was open today in Bukavu. People decided to go to work and to do what they usually do, even though the opposition called for this Dead City Day all around the Congo to protest against the national dialogue that the opposition rejects. But here in Bukavu, people decided to ignore this initiative.
Curiously enough, we only learned yesterday that the opposition called for this Dead City initiative. So we did not have time to work and prepare anything. Also, we did not quite understand the motivations behind it.
The local opposition didn't follow the initiative because they realized that their colleagues in Kinshasa treated them like puppets. They wake up one day and they decide that there's going to be a dead city, but it takes time to organize and maximize the action.
It is important to note that Bukavu is Vital Kamerhe's hometown. Kamerhe is an opposition leader who has been against the national dialogue for a long time, but he decided to change his mind a few weeks ago, and he said that he will take part in the national dialogue. And that might explain why here in Bukavu, where he is very popular, people decided to ignore the Dead City Day. But it is important to say that at 12 noon in Bukavu every day, people whistle all around the city for several minutes to ask for the presidential election to be held in November this year, as it is supposed to be held.
Clamping down on private media in Zambia. The country's broadcasting regulator has suspended the licenses of a television station and 2 radio stations, saying they threatened peace and stability. Another independent newspaper was forced to close back in June. Tensions remain high in Zambia as the newly re-elected President Edgar Lungu faces a court case over his win. Opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema accuses Lungu of not gathering more than 50% of the August 11th vote. Lungu's inauguration, scheduled for this Tuesday, has been pushed back. For more on this story, we're joined by Eddie Muitwa, Vice President of Zambia's Law Association. Thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. Mr. Muitwa, does Hichilema have a case? Is Lungu's presidency in doubt?
Well, it's obviously a matter that the court will have to determine. But clearly, the number of lawyers that either party has put together to either prosecute the petition or to defend the incumbent president will give you an indication that there is a serious matter that the Constitutional Court has to determine. The petitioners themselves include Hichilema, the leader of the UPND, and his running mate, Godfrey Mwamba. And they are asking the court to make determination on over 5 claims, and it remains to be seen what the Constitutional Court will say. What is also exciting about this case is that the constitutional provisions upon which the petition has been filed are new. We've never had them in Zambia before, because as you know, our constitution was only amended in January this year. So it's the first time that the Constitutional Court has to determine a matter on the basis of the grounds that have been advanced in the petition.
As for the government closing down the press, do you believe that this is a temporary measure, closing down a private radio, television, and newspapers, or does this signal a hardening of Lungu's policies?
Well, from what we have gathered from the affected TV station, as well as Radio Congo, is that the Independent Broadcasting Authority has merely suspended their licenses, and we understand that there's a hearing that is supposed to take place on the 14th of September. So it appears to be a temporal measure, but again, it's a matter that is likely to go to court, because speaking to the lawyers that Movie TV has engaged, it appears they intended to file a petition before the Minister of Information in line with the law. But unfortunately, there's no minister at the moment. And if you speak to the government, they'll most likely tell you that the Independent Broadcasting Authority acts independently, so there's no hand of the government in the matter.
Seeking better fortunes in South Africa, hundreds of Zimbabweans cross the border every day, either to escape their country or to bring back goods to sell. With the economy in dire straits, many Zimbabweans are ready to make sacrifices for a better life. But too many of them fall into the hands of human traffickers, and women especially are vulnerable. Nicolas Germain reports.
The drought means the Limpopo River, the natural border between South Africa and Zimbabwe, has dried out. This makes smuggling goods into Zimbabwe much easier. Robert Mugabe's country faces high unemployment and inflation, while South Africa is the region's economic powerhouse.
I'm not comfortable revealing our relationship with the authorities in case I anger them. We pay them and they let us do our work.
While goods travel into the poorer nation, some Zimbabweans are seeking jobs south of the border.
There's no job. Even I'm gonna see job in Zimbabwe with no money, so that's why I choose to come to South Africa.
Some Zimbabweans end up in this township in Johannesburg, but human traffickers keep asking them for more money. Young women are the most vulnerable.
They was just beating us always, or sometimes they raped us. Sometimes they push us to come outside and need some men to sleep with us, so that they're gonna take that money to pay.
One woman said she was bought by a man so she could become his wife. He paid just $110.
That's the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. There's more news coming up on France 24. Do stay with us.